Are you an educator who finds it difficult to engage the Gen Z learner? Are you finding it a challenge to make full use of technology for teaching and learning? Are you of the belief that good instructional design means that we need to upload text and presentation materials, videos, and quizzes onto a learning management system? Or are you still teaching all your classes using video conferencing systems? If so, then FREEJOO is the place you should be at. FREEJOO is a community of educators by educators. Here, you can network with educators from all around the world, collaborate on projects, exchange ideas, access the best competency-based professional development courses which help you enhance your pedagogical and technical skills as a 21st century educator. Learn to use digital tools which enable you to design your lessons easily and quickly, and so much more. Join more than 100,000 educators from more than 35 countries and get access to a wide variety of competency-based professional development courses which you can complete at your own time and at your own pace. What's more, the courses are available in several different languages and come with CPD units and certificates. No matter if you teach children at a preschool or an elementary level, or at a high school or tertiary education level. Even if you are a corporate trainer training adults, we have professional development courses for you. So what are you waiting for? Sign up for early access to FREEJOO version 2 today at akadasia.com and get in queue to receive a free lifetime membership for FREEJOO. What's more, if you sign up today, you will even receive access to 10 professional development programs for free. Sign up today. Visit www.akadasia.com and join FREEJOO, the global community of educators. Welcome to FREEJOO, the global community of educators. Are you an educator who finds it difficult to engage the Gen Z learner? Are you finding it a challenge to make full use of technology for teaching and learning? Are you of the belief that good instructional design means that we need to upload text and presentation materials, videos, and quizzes onto a learning management system? Or are you still teaching all your classes using video conferencing systems? If so, then FREEJOO is the place you should be at. FREEJOO is a community of educators by educators. Here, you can network with educators from all around the world, collaborate on projects, exchange ideas, access the best competency-based professional development courses which help you enhance your pedagogical and technical skills as a 21st century educator. Learn to use digital tools which enable you to design your lessons easily and quickly, and so much more. Join more than 100,000 educators from more than 35 countries and get access to a wide variety of competency-based professional development courses which you can complete at your own time and at your own pace. What's more, the courses are available in several different languages and come with CPD units and certificates. No matter if you teach children at a preschool or an elementary level, or at a high school or tertiary education level. Even if you are a corporate trainer training adults, we have professional development courses for you. So what are you waiting for? Sign up for early access to FREEJOO version 2 today at akadasia.com and get in queue to receive a free lifetime membership for FREEJOO. What's more, if you sign up today, you will even receive access to 10 professional development programs for free. Sign up today. Visit www.akadasia.com and join FREEJOO, the global community of educators. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be. My name is Nilesh, and I'm the co-founder and the CEO of Akadasia. and we are a Singapore-based, mission-driven business, um, and we aim to empower educators like you from everywhere. Welcome today, and thank you once again for spending your time with us. Today, we bring to you yet one more virtual fireside chat. The theme is still the same as the last time, which is teachers as lifelong learners. The topic for today is bringing ed back into EdTech, instructional design for meaningful learning in a blended classroom. And before I introduce the guests to you, I would like to also welcome more than 10,000 people who have registered for this particular event today from about 52 plus countries. So thank you once again for joining us. We really, really are excited to see all of you, and we hope that today's event is going to be as insightful as our previous events have been. So with having said that, let me get right down to introducing our distinguished panelists today. So the first panelist that we have for you today is Miss Ajita Deshmukh. She is the assistant professor from MIT ADT University in India. Ajita is a passionate educator who seeks to make learning fun. She is an ICT pedagogy integration specialist and has been part of various government and non-government projects related to ICT integrated pedagogy, and has been an online course developer and mentor for OE4BW, a UNESCO project. Her podcasts titled Chem Mystery, I love the title, Ajita, are quite popular. She has published nationally and internationally, and her major research interests are social media for education. She also dabbles in culture and heritage. Hello, Ajita, and welcome here to Akadasia.
Thank you, Nikesh.
My second guest today is from Singapore. It's Dr. Nachama Sokalingam. She is the founding program director of the Learning Sciences Lab at Singapore University of Technology Design. She holds a PhD in educational psychology and is a Skills Future Fellow, ISSOTL Fellow, and AHE Principal Fellow. She is currently working with several partners and collaborators on EdTech projects. And thanks once again, Nachama, for joining us. So excited to have you here today. Our next guest is joining us from the United States. He's no stranger here. He's been here on these panels before. And I would like to welcome once again Dr. Eddie Horton, who is the Associate Professor for Department of Computer Information Systems at Northwestern State University in the US. His primary teaching and research interests include networking, information security, and ethical hacking. Dr. Horton currently serves as the president of the Association of Business Information Systems and holds several industry certifications from CompTIA, Cisco, Microsoft, and Dell EMC. And when he's not at work, he's active with a local Mardi Gras crew and enjoys spending time with all four of his four-legged children and makes a pretty awful drone pilot. Welcome once again, Dr. Horton.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Our next guest is from Malaysia. This is the first time we've got somebody from Malaysia joining us. So with that, I would like to welcome Ms. Chin Pui Thing. She's the head of design and training at Teach for Malaysia. She's an experienced educator that serves in Malaysia high need schools to empower students to take lead on their own learning. With the on-ground experience both for public and alternative school setting, she provided instructional coaching to in-service teachers to ensure pedagogical and leadership development. She's also focused on facilitating knowledge, skills, and mindset for in-service teachers that require to make meaningful learning for students. Good afternoon, Pui Ting, and welcome here to Akadasia.
Yeah, you too. Hi, everyone.
And of course, the last but not the least, I would like to invite my very, very dear friend, my my American sister, as I would like to, as I usually call her, um, Dr. Kirsten Bartels, who's also our Chief Academic Officer. And she is joining us, as always, live from Michigan. Hi, Kirsten.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good whatever. It's nice to see you again, Neil.
Absolutely. And thanks once again for waking up so early for all of us. It's worth working with us, right? I mean, this is
It's
the kind of
awesome. Well,
this
and
is
I
the
can get Eddie to do it again because these chats are so rewarding and worthwhile, and it's a great group of people. I mean, I love Akadasia. I don't think I've ever worked for people that are as amazing as you guys. So
Thank you. Well, you're biased, so I'm just not going to take that into account. But anyway, before we get started, I would also like to inform everybody, especially the teachers who are out there watching us on the various streams on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We know that you will have questions with regards to e-certificates. Yes, we will be sharing information on that later during the show. So please relax. You will have information on how do you claim your e-certificates later, right? And with that, let's get started. Kirsten, it's over to you.
thank you so very much. Welcome, panelists. Thank you for joining us today, Eddie. It's always good to see you again.
Good to see you.
This is an exciting topic to me because I think it's really important. You know, when the shutdown happened and we all started using technology, some of us had been using it a little bit before. Some of it, like Eddie, were really good at it. Some of it, like me, we would dabble. But all of a sudden, you know, we were forced to this world that was very foreign to us. So now that we have been more experienced and been working in the virtual world for over a year, what do you know now that you wish you would have known when the shutdown happened and when you were forced to go virtual?
Well, I wish that the COVID came announced actually, because it was a sudden onset and it was a mad rush to get things done. So I think like what you're saying that we were at different stages of our transformation to blended learning, especially in Singapore. It was not that bad. We had already gotten on to blended learning. But I think teaching during COVID times requires a completely different set of skill sets, both from the faculty members and also from the support centers, like where I work at, the Learning Sciences Lab, which provides a faculty development work, something like what Akadasia does. Yeah. So I think that we had to quickly churn out courses for online blended format. So that was a little challenging. Yeah. So I would let the others speak. Otherwise, I would be going on. Eddie, you got something to say?
Yeah, I'll take and add something to this one. One of the things that I wish we had known is to start teaching some of our older faculty and some of our non-technical faculty how to use the tools we had. We didn't add anything at our university that we didn't already have access to when it happened. But for us, and I'm at a pretty rural university. It happened in the course of a week. We shut down on a Friday across spring break, and they were told Monday, your classes need to be online, and that's it. Here, have fun. So I think that is sort of the lesson learned, is that we should have spent more time ahead on at least showing these faculty members how to use this technology that we've had.
Well, and Eddie and I used to work at the same university, and I remember the mad scramble because a lot of people didn't have laptops. And a lot of people didn't have computers at home. So it's hard to remember that really was the world. I mean, I remember watching, and I don't know if this was anywhere else in the world, but Eddie and I used to watch the tracker of where there were cases of COVID in the counties and when there was going to be a case in our county. So there was also this sense of panic with learning. And there are a couple more. What else does anyone like to say about, what do you know now that you wish you would have known then?
Yeah, I would really actually want to add on that. I think it was actually quite a painful way for us to actually be like adapt to like the virtual learnings around, and something that if I actually would reflect back on like something that I would wish that I could have known is to actually focusing on like the fundamental aspect for like teaching and learning, which actually come into if I would categorize, it would come into like a triangle, which actually comprehends of like teachers, students, and also like the content, right? It's like no matter which setting you are at, and this is actually sort of like the fundamental relationship that we need to always look at on like how these three connect to one another, which I think I wish to actually be able to focus a little bit more to the teacher that I'm actually supporting online, rather than actually introducing to them on like, oh, okay, if virtual learnings and this is some of the things that you need to do, but actually not really looking at a bigger picture around like actually the relationship of these three parties.
Yeah, I would actually like to agree to what Eddie has been saying, because even in India, it was the same thing. The only thing is the technologies are there and everything was already there, but there was a lot of resistance earlier before the pandemic. If only that resistance we would have manifested and we would have, like, had a little bit of forewarning, then the teacher training would have been much better and much robust, because the times were very painful now when we look back, as Hugh said, that it was like left, right, center. We were, the first wave was, we were just caught unawares, totally. So, what are we supposed to bother about? I mean, how could we even expect teachers to learn something new while it was like kind of a disconnected world, actually, where we live in a bubble at one time, and then we are learning, and so I just wish that teachers would take the continuous professional development programs as seriously and sincerely more than ever now, because we really need to be prepared anytime for anything.
And I think that
Yeah.
that's, we didn't predict this. And even if we had predicted it, no one would have believed it. No one would have believed that we're, 18 months in and, different parts of the world are still going into lockdown. Um, we're still in the States, people are still very vaccine resistant. They don't want to go and get it. Um, so I don't know that even if we knew, if people would have been willing, because then we're asking our already overburdened teachers to do something else. And I think that that's one thing that I want everyone who is watching to know, that we understand how incredibly overburdened this whole situation. I mean, you were before this started, and we went through it with you. So we empathize, and that's why we're trying to make your life easier by, sharing things like this. So I have a question that I just thought of while you were all talking. Did the fact that we were thrown into this and it was stressful and it added all this, do you think that teachers became more empathetic in their teaching because all of a sudden they were forced to be in a situation where they had to learn and they had to be uncomfortable? Do you think that affected the way they approached teaching and the way they approached technology in teaching?
100%. I think it really showed them that there is a learning curve with a lot of this technology. And to give the rest of y'all a little bit of a background, most of the faculty here at Northwestern State, where I'm at, it's an older faculty base, and that makes it a little harder. You all know the term digital natives; they're just not. So learning this is something that's very difficult and not in their wheelhouse. And I think that is, especially true for a lot of college professors. You may have someone who is the world's best scholar in 14th century Greek literature, but they can't turn on a computer. So, and all of a sudden they've got to learn that, and they've got to learn it right now. I think the speed at which things moved was the issue. But I mean, they had to. Had we been able to say, okay, there's going to be a pandemic in 3 months, then the way this whole thing was handled could have been different.
Well, I think in the case of Singapore University of Technology and Design, because this is a very new age university, the university was only started up in 2009, 2010. So we are only 10 years old. So our faculty members are pretty young. We do have older faculties, but they are very technologically advanced. They're experts in the field. So I think in terms of the disciplinary expertise and technology related to that, they were very seasoned. But in terms of using the technology for teaching, that's a different thing. So I agree with Eddie that there was a learning curve for them, and they I think they are more empathetic towards the learning curve that students are having, but they didn't have time to think about this really. So it is only towards this year in 2021 that we are taking time to think about all these issues of mental wellness and things like that. So at the first phase was really, what are we going to do now? How are we going to conduct the lessons? What is going on? How are students going to graduate? And things like that. So it was more of the daily activities that we were focusing on. And then once we were clear that this is going to be like forever, it's like an endemic and it's just going on and on. So we shifted more towards focusing on the new norm of how we might go about taking care of the situation. So yeah, so it has been like a evolving, growing curve actually. Yeah.
It's hard to think back really about the sense of panic that we all experienced. And there are people that, I worked with, that the idea of emailing a paper, no, students had to print out and turn in physical papers. I stopped doing that years ago, but a lot of other people still want that physical copy. So it's interesting how technology has
Changed us.
evolved and changed us.
Yeah.
So when you go and you're looking at designing a course, designing a lesson, and you're going to use technology, do you approach it from technology first or from pedagogy first? And why?
Yeah, I really think that actually people would actually normally would start off with like technology, because that is actually something that we want to actually be thinking about. What are some of the tools that we can actually engage students like most effectively, or even like with different kind of like learning needs. But ultimately is that I would actually think that the students' outcome would actually be something that we should actually be thinking about it first. What are some of the experience that we want the students to actually be getting from the learnings, and also what are some of the things that we want to achieve from the learning itself, and from there be thinking about actually what kind of technology that would actually be most suitable in doing that. Because I've been actually seeing teachers that actually on the two spectrum. One is actually on like not really using like very, very simple kind of technology. It's just actually using like the virtual whiteboard, and it can actually just get the students like engaged, have a very meaningful learning. And I also do have another spectrum of teacher that actually used kind of like just 3 to 5 kind of technology in the lessons, and at the end when you just ask a simple question to the students on like what are some of the things that you are learning, and the students just like, I know that I'm having fun, but in terms of like what are some of the things that I'm learning, so I might not actually be able to capture it very well. So I think that actually do show that actually having an outcome and deciding on like what kind of technology that actually can supplement into it is actually quite important.
I think if you asked that question pre-COVID, the answer would have been pedagogy. But now I really do think it's technology, because, everyone in the States, well, everyone around the world, really, they're worried about resurgences. And I have heard a lot of our faculty in the College of Business say, I need to plan on what I'm going to do if this happens again. How am I going to get this online if we get told Friday you're going online Monday morning?
Yeah, absolutely. And to add to what both of them have said, technology and pedagogy, though, will go always hand in hand, especially for countries like ours, which is extremely geographically huge. At the same time, which also has got diversity with respect to the availability of the technology there. So what happens is, we always need to keep in mind the affordances of a particular technology that we're going to be using, so that we can actually leverage the pedagogical practice that we want to be doing. Okay, so like there are places in the country, and I'm sure most of the world also will be having that type of places where the mobile network would not be so smooth. So then at those particular times, if you can't have internet based things, we have had experiments, and we do have a TV channel, dedicated channels run by the government, which actually disseminate education. Every class, every topic, and all that. But then it is not going to be the way we would have done it in a online method. So technology, yes, the affordances of technology, I would put it that way. That should be on the top of the mind.
Okay. Thank you very, very much.
I would like to add on actually. This might be a kind of a different perspective. We usually talk about, I agree with Eddie that before the COVID situation, as a faculty developer, I used to also think about pedagogy first before technology. But I think more and more I'm getting to think that it is not one or the other or one before the other. So, we talk about putting the horse before the cart, but now we can also have a cart full of horses, moving the horses. So it's possible that technology actually speeds up and hastens and accelerates the teaching and learning. So I think it goes hand in hand together. But I think what we are trying to say is that pedagogy is very important. You cannot have EdTech without pedagogy. Now, if you're trying to design an EdTech tool without considering the pedagogical frameworks or how students learn or how we should be teaching them and supporting them, scaffolding and things like that, then I think it is going to be an ineffective tool. So therefore, pedagogy is necessary. But in today's time, you cannot have a pedagogy without technology either. COVID has made it very necessary that we so we will need both pedagogy and technology to go hand in hand together. And if I may add on another point to what Ajita was sharing, the affordances of technology. I think the affordances, if I'm not mistaken, that she was referring to was more in terms of the bandwidth and things like that. More of the hardware issues, but I think it's also about the fitness of purpose of these technology tools. So one of the challenges that we see that faculty developers have is that there's so many tech tools that is available. So what Puiting was saying, one might use 5 technology tools and another might just use 2 technology tools. Maybe he's just using Google Doc or something like that, but the lesson can still be effective. So, the idea of how do you integrate the technology and pedagogy tools is very important. And one of the ways that I suggest in our faculty development programs is to utilize a fitness for purpose framework for online and blended learning. If I could request Roy to show the screen that I had wanted to share. It's in our magazine. You're welcome to, this is available online for everyone, so you could actually see that. So we could actually divide our, we could consider our teaching activities into various categories, that we want to communicate with our students and manage the classes. We want to deliver content. Okay, it could be for self-directed learning or it could be for a group learning. So you can actually delineate this content delivery part, or it can be for collaboration as in projects, or it can be for assessment and feedback. So, depending on the purpose of that teaching and learning activity, we could actually go about choosing the appropriate technology tools. So, in the beginning, the early days, we used to use just a learning management system for everything. So if you use a certain learning management system, the school ensured that we only use that. But I think this COVID situation has broken many rules. So sometimes we contact students by WhatsApp group. We have Google Doc and things like that. Even when there was Zoom bombing, we were Zooming. So, because there are also other administrative issues that we need to consider. But aside from that, I think this framework is sort of like useful in deciding which tool to use when. So the point that I'm trying to make is that the pedagogy and technology needs to go hand in hand together.
Yeah, absolutely. When I said about the affordances, it is exactly this particular thing, this particular framework. But also one additional thing that we have to keep in mind, at least in our environments, is that the affordances also means the bidirectionality of the pedagogical transaction, and
Yes.
we have a wide variety where the students might not have the same technological affordance as the teachers have, and
Absolutely.
therefore that framework that you showed just now, that's
Yeah.
actually the essence of it. Yeah, thanks.
I kind of want to add something to that as well about one of the issues I think that's coming up now for non-technical faculty especially is the pure amount of choice when they decide to try to move something into a technology. Like take video conferencing. We're using StreamYard, but there's Zoom and Google and WebEx, and you could just keep naming them. I think that one of the challenges that a lot of faculty have is, okay, I know I want to do this, but where do I start? What platform do I want to use? And just maybe that's somewhere that we could work on professional development in actually helping faculty members learn how to look at some of this stuff and decide what they really need to fit their needs.
Yep. And I think it's not just the faculty members or the students, but it's also the support units, like library could come in with the digital books and things like that. It could be faculty development work. So it's really like a partnership that's coming together, the whole aspect of EdTech. Yeah.
Well, it'll be interesting. This may sound kind of silly, but we latched on to something when we got locked down, when we were supposed to go and teach online. We found what worked for us. I liked Zoom. I think I used, because for some reason Google Meets hated me. It still hates me. It's not me. It's Google Meets. It's not my fault. But as the professor attitude, it's not my fault. It's the technology's fault. But we latched on to things that worked for us. Are we going to be open now to go and try different technologies, or are we going to have this sort of brand loyalty, if you will? Zoom saved me. Zoom allowed me to meet with my students. Zoom let me do these things. Why in the world would I consider StreamYard? Will we be open, and should we be open to new technologies?
I think that's a good thing that you can talk about the administration with, because I think you're exactly right. What happened? We had to do this stuff right away. So whatever you could use. But now they've had time to think about it, and administration's worried that students don't know how to use Zoom and Google Meets and StreamYard and all these other pieces of software. They kind of want everything back. You mentioned an LMS system. They kind of want everything back to one. They want everybody at a university or a school to use one platform. And I don't honestly think that's going to happen. I mean, unless it's truly forced, I don't think it's going to happen.
Yep. I think we are going more open source. Initially, I think, I've been in different institutions and they like to sign on with certain enterprises. So it could be Microsoft or it could be Google. So it's one or the other. But right now, it's up to people to, to try out whatever works. And I think sometimes it is okay because at the end of the day, you want to deliver the lessons. But I think what we are driving towards is if we had an option, would it be good to have? Would it be good to plan ahead? Is that the question? Right.
Well, and I think
And
we sort of know that we should plan ahead. I think we've always kind of known that we should plan ahead. And yet, we know that our teachers around the world are completely overburdened, underappreciated.
Absolutely.
And the fact that they were able to go and deliver education and are still doing it. It's this idea that teachers get summers off. No, they don't. They might not be getting paid in the summer, but they're not getting their summers off because they're trying to plan. And I know that Neil wants to ask a question, but I want to go off. And one more thing, though, because now that you all are experts, you've been doing this for some of you well before the pandemic. I know that our teachers out there are looking at technology, looking at how to integrate technology. They have the same issues. One thing we found out is globally, we all have the same issues. Internet connectivity, other things. We all suffer from the same issues. But one of the biggest issues we are finding is cheating. And I know that's something that's in the mind of teachers who are looking to start the new school year, either in person, blended, or on to completely virtual. What do you do? How do you use technology and pedagogy to ensure that cheating isn't done and quality education is being delivered? What are your suggestions? What are your pointers?
Okay, can I go here first?
Please.
Yeah, okay. So this is exactly where the pedagogy comes into picture, where it overrides the technology. Because if we ask questions which are personal response type and interpretative in nature, then the chances of cheating would be reduced to minimum. Like in case of, let's say, because I'm a teacher educator or something, or even if I'm going to teach chemistry or any typical disciplinary subject, instead of just asking questions which are very kind of based on the theory or the practical, if we ask them questions where their personal interpretation is important, then it's bound to reduce the minimize the cheating part. So that is where the pedagogy actually rules technology, is what I would say.
Yeah.
I think there's luckily more and more technology that's coming out to try to help with cheating. I don't know if y'all are familiar. There's a free example that comes to mind is Respondus Lockdown Browser, which pretty much locks the machine down so the student can't do anything. On the other hand, though, I feel like that is also one of those questions where if somebody wants to cheat bad enough, they're going to be able to do it anyways. We've all had somebody cheat in a face-to-face class where there was an example at our own university where a baseball player wrote the answers on the top of his hat and kind of pulled it down so he could read the answers. I don't think we'll ever be able to completely stop it. But I think the great thing is that some of these little tools like Respondus and others, they deter a good bit of it. The fact that you might be being watched seems to be enough for a lot of people. Not everyone, but for quite a few.
I agree with both Ajita and Eddie. So one of the things that we do at SUTD is we are very project-based learning oriented. So the students will have to present on their own, even if they're doing in a team setting. And the actual exams are taking place face-to-face, like this sort of meetings between the faculty members and the students. So in a way, it does increase the workload of the teachers, but I think that is another issue. We find that the quality of teaching and learning is really improved in this situation. So, aside from the discussions here, I really think that the the monetization, the appreciation, recognition for teachers and professional development and recognition for teachers should really be taken care of, and they should be given more. That's what I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and something that I want to maybe point out around would just be, I think cheating thing is definitely something that worry for like all the educators, but at the same time, like how will we actually leveraging on like technology to actually give back the ownership to the students on like actually is teacher and the students that actually come together and thinking about how learning could actually happen, right? Because I think what I'm actually experienced in the past would be like educator is actually like adding more and more kind of technology or even like things to actually prevent cheating, but actually ultimately is how we can actually also using the pedagogy to actually letting the students to actually be thinking about in integrity part, and also like what like taking ownership in your learnings would actually be like, and what kind of sort of like technology that I can actually help in order to build that. I think that is also something that is actually quite important to actually be instilled around, because especially when in person visible learning, I think you can see the learnings happen quite like quite obviously, but in like online that you have a lot of doubt on like actually whether learning is happening or not, what kind of technology I can add in to actually make it happen. But it's also at the same time to actually be thinking about what are some of the ownership that we can give to students to actually make it happen as well.
If I may add on,
Please.
I think that's a very interesting point, Poiting. One of the things that we could do is really rethink how we are assessing students. I mean, a lot of times it has been about grades, and then we have talked about learning versus grades. But how do we motivate students to really want to learn?
Yep.
Whether it's integration or differentiation, I have no idea why I learned integration in secondary school, so they cannot find the significance. But if we as teachers are able to design projects or learning opportunities for them to showcase what they're learning for societal benefits or something like that, so it's more in line with project based learning, right? So if their learning is meaningful and contributes to something, and they can showcase this maybe as a portfolio or something, then they're really invested and engaged in teaching and learning. So I think what I'm trying to say is that we need to rethink our pedagogical model, the learning model, the teaching model. And also, as we do that, we have to rethink what we are assessing and
Yeah.
how we can really inspire learning. Yeah.
Oh, I think you're all
That-
absolutely right. I'm thinking about the shift that I had in my own sort of pedagogy approach when I was still teaching face to face, and our students are bringing laptops in. And at first, I didn't want that. I don't know why, but I was very anti them having a laptop. And then I realized that, that is actually my friend. So, I'm going to say something and the students are going to look it up. Well, instead of me looking at their ability to do that as an adversarial relationship, wow, they can go and they can expand on this idea. So they have that tool. Then how do we use it? How do we integrate it? Let's not view their ability to do these things as an issue. Let's use it as it's an asset. And I
Yeah.
think that's a different framework as well. Neil, you've been very patient. I know you are dying to ask a question, so please.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kirsten. And so as always, I have a curveball. Let me just kind of roll back a bit, right? Some of the panelists mentioned earlier that, when you are looking to when you start looking at designing a course, these days you're looking at technology first more and more, right? So because of that, I have also seen a lot of administrators assign technology training classes for their faculty. Okay, go and learn this particular LMS. You have a 2-day, 3-day training, whatever. Okay, or you go and use this app, and of course their intention is good. They are hoping that the quality of lessons that are being designed on these technology platforms are very engaging for the learners. But the truth is, it's not the case, because even though administrators are spending in some cases quite a lot of money to get their faculty trained, and of course not all administrators are also training their faculty, but I'm saying the ones who do, a majority of the teachers still come back to Zoom, still come back to Google Meet, and they want to do synchronous lessons. Okay, now when it comes to the delivery of these lessons online, it may be easier for the teacher to deliver it, but it's not always the most engaging way for the learners to receive the lesson. Especially I think in India, in Malaysia, in Indonesia, internet connectivity is not always the best. So sometimes the students might not have access to the fastest internet connectivity. The video is off, so I don't even know whether my student's paying attention or not. So in a scenario like this, how do you plan your lesson? How do you plan your lesson? Because I've been trained on technology, but I've not been trained on my instructional design skills. I've not been trained on how to, really build a blended course where I can, mix online, offline kind of, engagement. So what would your take be on this kind of a situation? What would you tell the teachers? How do they actually approach these kind of situations?
I think you have to think of technology as a tool, not a crutch. And you're right. A lot of administrators have said, okay, you're going to learn this. You're going to learn Microsoft Teams. But time and time again in administration, you can see that if a technology is forced, it fails. You've got to find technology and faculty that want to adopt that. You've got to give them ways to use it. Something that, that personally, like in our own College of Business, I saw, if you take somebody who teaches something, like say business law, and you give them an example of how they can use it, they're much more interested in it than, oh, you need to learn this and figure out what you're going to do with it. Giving them some pointers makes all the difference in the world, because then you get your faculty to think they want to adopt it, not that you forced them to do it.
I think there are two issues here. One is actually the technical limitations. Okay, so I can hear from this conversation that what people face in India or Indonesia or Malaysia, and US and Singapore is going to be very different. And even within, a certain district and things like that, it's going to be very different. So I think one aspect that the challenge that you have thrown is really the technical limitations. And then how do we blend technology and pedagogy in that, what kind of blended learning are we going to have? So I think going back to the earlier point, in this case and in any case of teaching and learning, I think the fundamental then is that we still go back to the learning outcomes. Because, well, at the end of the day, that is what you intend, or that is what we want our students to achieve. So, yes, so you win. We have to go back to pedagogy, and we have to decide now which of this is actually the lower order learning outcomes. Okay, you win. Okay, the lower order learning outcomes and the higher order learning outcomes. And we find that the lower order learning outcomes, which is about facts and memorization, basic understanding, testing understanding, and things like that, we could probably do it in an asynchronous mode, in a self-directed mode, right? But when it comes to higher order learning, where we want critical thinking, where we want more immediate prompt feedback, we want peer learning, we want collaboration, then we probably need to use this kind of technologies, higher end technologies. But if we have limitations with the technologies, if the Wi-Fi is not there, it's not there. So we are limited by the practicalities of what is in our country and in our institution. So if our institution has a certain administrative regulation that you can only use this and use this and use this, then we are limited by that. So hope that answers.
Well,
Neil?
Well, I have another.
Can I answer quickly, Neil? Because I have a different perspective on this. Because I was not completely against technology. I'm much more tech savvy now than I was before. But the reason I used Zoom and Google Meets was purely selfish. I wanted to interact with my students. I wanted that. I believe that because of that, having a conversation like this with my students, if I couldn't do it physically in a classroom, I was going to do it like this, because that's the way that I felt that I was the most effective teacher. And it took me a little while to stop being such an insanely self-centered egomaniac and go, it's not about me. And it's not about what I want with my students. It's about what my students need. And Roy just posted something that somebody put up about it's not just about the teacher perspective, it's about the learner perspective. My son is a significantly better driver now because he does F1 virtual F1 races and he's learning things that way. I wouldn't have thought that, but it's changing our perspective and taking it from approach of what do our learners, what are they coming at this with? How do we help them? How do we integrate stuff? And I know you have another question, but Roy also said that there's a lot of comments about how do we apply pedagogy and technology and learning outcomes when you can't necessarily guarantee that people are going to be able to have the gadgets or have the internet connectivity. And that's a massive problem.
Yes, it is. And what you actually said was the focus word, that whatever ICT integrated pedagogy we are going to have, it has to be essentially learner centric. So the first thing that any pedagogist, any teacher, any educator, even if it's going to be a person who's going to teach grade 1, they first need to understand that what would be the learner centricity there? Is my first grader, like probably 7-year-old or 8-year-old, will that 8-year-old be able to sit in front of the screen for a very long time? And is that even healthy? Okay, so you need to, yeah, and because when we are talking about the shift of things immediately, like it just was emergency. So in the EdTech world, we have got a specific term for that. That is called as emergency remote teaching, which we did from the March-April 2020. But you need to not only have admin on board with you, because your entire timetable has to be changed. You cannot have 4 hours and 5 hours continuous sessions with a 15-minute or a half an hour or even a 1 hour break in it. You just can't have that. Also, there has to be a very clear-cut distinction, and that essentially again has to come from admin part. And I guess the teachers and the educators need to be really vocal about it if you want to wake up the admin. That is, there is a difference between attendance and engagement. So, most of the places where we have been interacting, and I have been training faculty for the tools and the pedagogy and how to integrate it. What Christine was just saying was a little bit different in different scenarios, like where it was the attendance there? Are the students going to be marked present for it? Is this going to be marked as the teacher has taken the lecture? Well, but there are going to be constraints, and that whole concept needs to be changed. That if you're going to have it online, it's not about the attendance, it's all about engagement. So you need to have that synchronous, asynchronous, and the outcomes will be achieved. If this breakup is done, then it will be achieved. Otherwise, you have the timetable, there is attendance with videos off, and yet no outcomes.
I actually completely agree with you on that, Ajita, and that's exactly what I was kind of alluding to earlier. Because, I mean, the whole topic, if you look at it, in terms of instructional design and how do we actually make it more meaningful, the whole idea is very simple, right? At the end of the day, we have so many different pedagogical frameworks out there, which all talk about different ways of us engaging with the student. They don't talk about attendance, they talk about engagement, right? But my question is, how many teachers out there today are actually relying on those frameworks and bringing them into their lesson design rather than just jumping onto a technology platform and saying, okay, this platform says that first I need to have a lesson, so I type in this. Next, it says I need to have a topic, so I type in my topic, and then it says I need to have a quiz, so I put in a quiz. There's no. I see. Unfortunately, I see less and less teachers really going back to the basics, because pedagogical frameworks have always been around. I mean, they've been around for hundreds of years, and I remember when I was at SP, when we used to design lessons, our mentors used to tell us, our education department over there would tell us, if you give me a lesson which does not have a solid pedagogical framework behind it, then it's not going to run live. We're not going to allow you to run it live in your classroom. And I don't see that now being translated in an online platforms. That's why the question is, I go back to it. How many teachers are actually going back to the basics and learning or revisiting the various pedagogical frameworks which are out there, and use and applying those to their instructional design base, and then deciding, okay, this is my lesson plan, these are my objectives, so what technology tools do I need to pick to meet these objectives, and why should I use these tools, and when should I use these tools, right? So there's a systematic approach there which I find lacking. So my question is, can all of you share one particular example, a real example of how you might have used a particular pedagogical framework, devised a lesson around it, and then delivered it online? And what was the impact of that versus something that has been just going live, on Zoom with no real thought process? Yeah. Anyone?
Well, I think I shared the framework earlier. So I had actually used it in class, and I had actually, because I take care of the faculty development work at SUTD, so we had shared this with other faculty members as well. So when they come to discuss with us, how they might use blended learning or flipped learnings, so I would suggest the same thing. So these are a couple of different frameworks that is. It's different frameworks, but you have to put it together. So the earlier point I mentioned about starting with the learning outcomes and recognizing which of this is lower order learning outcomes and higher order learning outcomes, and then deciding what kind of teaching activities we would have for that, and the assessment that goes into that. So that is a constructive alignment framework, right? But the technology has not come in as yet, because now we take this lesson plan and then we put this into the fit for purpose framework. So, when you're delivering the constructive alignment, then you would first have to start with, if I'm doing project-based learning, then I will have a different set of classroom management from a lecture or, a teaching mode kind of delivery. So where will I place it? Is it going to be in the learning management system? Am I going to create a Google site, or how am I going to deliver it? How do I manage the project work? How do I get feedback? And how do I design the students to give feedback to each other and things like that? So, the whole aspect of the instructional design unfolds in this way. Now, if it is not done properly, then obviously the flipped learning is going to be not effective. Now, I see a lot of research going on in education that compares traditional teaching to blended learning, flipped learning, whatever. And I don't quite agree with this kind of comparative studies to traditional, because I think it's meaningless to me, actually. You're trying to improve something is lacking, and that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to improve, right? So it's essential that we ask the question of, how do I improve flipped learning? How am I implementing the flipped learning? Is there a good framework, like what you're saying? So I'm trying to compress all the different things within a few minutes. It's not going to be sufficient. So maybe Ajita or Puiting or Eddie can add some more examples to it.
I'll add one that I think is an issue with this, especially now that things are starting to open up a little bit. I think one of the problems becomes that administration wants you to be doing all of these things. They want you to have a class that has a few students in the classroom and a few online and a few that are synchronous and a few that are asynchronous. And for faculty who are not, technology oriented, it is extremely overwhelming to them. I have had multiple faculty tell me they feel like they're not giving any single student the amount of attention they deserve because they're doing all of these other things. So one of the issues I see is getting administration on board with the fact that if you're going to get faculty to use technology, you've got to not make them do everything at one time.
And you never know when faculty or when the internet is just going to randomly go out in the middle of a discussion with people from all over the world, and you have to use your phone as a hotspot.
Yeah.
Things happen.
Sorry,
Yes.
everyone. I didn't mean to abandon you.
No, no problem.
Ajita,
Yeah.
you had something to add to that question, right, earlier?
Yes, yes. To what both of them have said, Nachamma and Eddie, both. First, yes, administration should not expect teachers to do everything possible. And at the same time, yes, what she said was absolutely correct. Like when we are comparing flipped and traditional, and it's senseless, yeah, because it's like comparing apples and oranges, right? Because there's no comparison between the two. It's just that what could be better. At the same time, because we teach in universities, it's a different ball game altogether. Because at least we are training faculties. But when you go to the school section, where the number of school students and the number of school teachers is much higher, at that time it becomes really difficult as to how do you, in a remote situation, how do you first train the teachers for that and then expect them to, like imbibe all those things and then apply it, and that also in a very shortest time. So I'll just try to give you an example here. I think Roy could be sharing or somebody. The apex body of school education in India had been the at the pivot for this particular thing. They came up with something called as alternative academic calendar for every class, right immediately within like 1 or 2 months. And if we could just like scroll down till a particular place, because like we said, we had a typical part where the internet is not available always, and there is this great UN cry that of course the students are, what are they going to do, just always be on screen. So this is a framework which is like given as a guidelines as to how any teacher could modify this. If we go a little bit down, let us say to page like immediately one, just you'll just see a table. So if you can just scroll down, let's run back like 5-6 pages. So once that table comes, you will have a particular thing like a tabulated part where there is a topic given, then the video note is given, and instantly, yeah, page 13 onwards, you will keep on having. And you will also have an activity related to that. If you can just, yes. So these are those small activities that the students will do at home. So there the teachers don't actually need to be with them. So what one of our panelists was saying, the triangle of the teacher, student, and parent, that is very effectively brought in here, because here is where the parental supervision would be required. And if you see the theme, I mean the third para, which is the actual activity part, now if this is taken as a guideline, it becomes very easy for the school teachers, who we cannot expect them to be, like technologically sound with all the edtech pedagogies that exist, because not all of them have ever thought that okay, we will be integrating technology. At least I'm talking about the Indian scenario. So this was very, very helpful. This came up like because we shut down in March 2020, and it was first released for like 2 weeks in the month of April, and then May, and then after every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, they kept on putting up such guidelines for every class, every standard, and now it has come up for this year for the primary stage, and soon it will come for the secondary stage also. So this could serve as a guideline. This is available on the government website of NCERT, that is the apex body of school education, freely downloadable for everybody around the world. Hope this helps the teachers. They'll get a properly mapped experiment that can be done at home with staple items that any home would have, and thus have some experiential learning as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Ajita. How about you, Poiting?
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. So when we are actually training, I think when in the past when we are actually supporting the teacher, I think we actually come back into the fundamental questions to all the teacher every time when we are actually have the interaction would just be, what are your students gonna learn, and what are some of the indicators that actually show that your students are actually learning. So I think at the very beginning I was actually just sharing around like the triangle. It's like regardless of what setting that you are actually at, this triangle is actually quite important on like the relationship between teacher, students and the content, and also teacher and the content would actually be very, very important. So for example, like in the lessons, how the teacher will actually interact with the students, and also then the students interacting with the teacher, right? I think that is something that we should actually be considering in like online setting, in-person settings. I think those are some of the things that you still need to actually make it effective. And then only we think about actually what are some of the tools that can help me in actually achieving that objective. And the other one would just be, I think, is something that we always forget about, would just be how the students will actually interact with the content, right? It's like actually what are some of the tools, what are some of the strategy that we can actually get students to actually be having a motivations and also achieving the learning mastery. I think that is also a second part that we are actually constantly be thinking about. And thirdly would just be, what's the relationship of teacher and the content, would just be what are some of presentations moods that you are actually doing that actually allowed the student to actually be having that relationship of like students and content. And hence with all these questions that is actually in mind, and hence the technology would just be something that supplements to like all these things. But if I would actually be thinking about, I think it's important for the teacher to have a lot of like different kind of technologies tool in their toolbox, and hence they have more options that they can choose around. But when we are actually be doing like training, I think just now Nash, you're actually talking about like, the administrator just doing a lot of like, technology training and stuff like that. Maybe something that can actually add on would just be like these kind of questions, right? On like actually, if we go back to that triangle, or even thinking about the fundamental questions, how we are actually supporting students in learning, that would actually make a huge difference on like making the whole entire workshop effective.
Yes,
Thank you for that.
absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead,
Just
Ajita.
to add to what she's saying, so what usually we do, like I am a teacher trainer, and this type of framework which is there, we usually show it to the in-service and the pre-service teachers, and we ask them to follow this and also give out multiple options for the students so that their affordances increases. Like uh, I don't feel very good to say about it, but many of the schools don't have an LMS. So then, how does I mean, when we say that, please be sure that there has to be a bi-directional, communication between students and teachers, especially at the school level. How is that bidirectionality going to come in? So many places, WhatsApp was the major communication channel that was used by teachers across the school levels. And then we also had to train the teachers to tell them that please be sure about the cybersecurity issues while using these things, and also open up something like a Jamboard or a Padlet, which would be very easy for the students to have discussion points which they could interact with. And we had to actually include this for the strangle thing, because what happens many a times is, like I said, the country is very diverse. So we have where both of the parents are working. So again, that vertex of the triangle is missing, because as we went online, the work of the parents also went online simultaneously, right? So they were also too busy with that to fit into that triangle. So we needed to have asynchronous component also. So always we had to tell the teachers that, think, if you were in this place, then what would you do? Email, you're going to be drowned in emails. So what could be the things? WhatsApp, at one point you will not even bother to switch it on and look through the notifications. But then you also have to think about the smaller bandwidth, low bandwidth devices. Thankfully, yes, we do have guidelines and all, but the teachers actually need to really be innovative, that if this one guideline is there, then how do I use it and consider it? So that third vertex missing is also a problem with both the parents, like their work schedules also becoming erratic. You just can't expect a parent to sit with a child, right?
Well, thanks for that, Ajita. Really appreciate everybody's comments on that. I think we're running out of time, so I'm just going to move directly into the public and the audience questions. So we do have a Mentimeter opened up, and we've got a whole bunch of questions which the audience have been posting. So let's go and look at what's happening on Mentimeter. So we've got about 83 questions, and what I've done very quickly is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Roy said you can ask one. We have time for one.
We have 83 questions. So I'm just gonna, pick and choose randomly, things that I find interesting. So the first question which I see here is, and again, anybody can answer this. How would you address the problem of faculty using a variety of technology? Isn't that a burden on the school IT team to manage so many different things?
Eddie.
I'll take that one, since I've one of the few in here that's had IT experience in that. I was net admin at a school here, Louisiana Tech, before I started teaching full time. It is, and that's why, in my discussion earlier, talking about how you don't want administration to stifle you. That's why it happens a lot of the time. What you really have to do from an IT standpoint, because I'm going to tell you, no matter where you are in the world right now, your IT staff is overworked and underpaid. What we've had to do in the past is say, you can use whatever you want to use, but this is what we're going to support. We're going to support WebEx, for example. If you want to use Zoom, that's great. You're on your own. You figure out how you're going to use Zoom. We're going to support one technology because we just don't have the manpower to handle it. We're a relatively small university here. We've got maybe, 4,000, 4,500 computers on campus. Right now, there's 4 people managing that. So it's a lot.
Well, actually,
Now,
if I could
more
just
or
add to...
less,
Go ahead, Ajita.
Yeah, more or less, it's the same thing. Thankfully, our university has got the platform is revamped really to accommodate, I think, 3 technologies so that it could be taken. Other than that, then you're on your own. But 3 is a good choice, I feel. Yeah.
So I just wanted to kind of add over there. I was the chief technology officer in my earlier days for one of Asia's largest film school in India. And I think, Ajita, you might know this, Whistling Woods International. And, we basically had a pretty massive campus and, all of that cool stuff. We had amazing technology. However, after that, I moved to, I won't name the name of the Polytechnic, but, that's the place where Nachama and we basically kind of shared a common employer at that point. We never met there on campus, but if you remember, Nachama, that particular school has a policy: no Macs, no Apple computers, and they only support Windows, right? And that's the entire infrastructure is basically built around that. And I remember when I first joined in that school, I was kind of shaken up because I'd never used Windows PCs up until that point. I was always using Apple computers. And I walked into the IT department, and I was told that, we don't support it, but if you want to use it, you figure it out how to get on the network yourself. And I did. And Nachama might be surprised to know this, but back then I was running a small community of teachers, and we had pretty much figured a way out to get onto the network. And I was called Mac Angel, and I would basically place myself in the library whenever I didn't have a class. So any teacher on campus who wants to use a Mac, they knew where to find me. So yeah, I mean, in the sense, at times teachers really need to figure things out themselves if the IT department is overwhelmed. So I completely second you on that, Dr. Horton. Yeah.
I think if I can add on to that, is that okay?
Go ahead. Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
I think it's not so much on the technology part of it, but I think in terms of faculty development, I think it is very important for teachers, faculty members to have the initiative to want to learn, to want to continue to learn and to take that initiative to reach out to various communities that might be like this by Akadasia, to try and learn on our own if our community at the university or school is not providing for us. I mean, it is good if they collaborate and they provide, but if not as well, we should be taking care of our own learning as well. Yeah.
And in fact, this leads me to my next question from Mentimeter. Somebody writes saying that the younger teachers seem to be more technologically savvy, whereas the older teachers seem to be more pedagogically sound. How do we bridge this gap?
If I can jump in, we do things in collaboration. So I think this kind of community partnership in your own schools, you can even start up at your university, schools, or the place where you're from. You could have this kind of open community. In our university, teaching happens in teams. So it's not just disciplinary, but also technology expertise. Another aspect that we have, all of this, we have talked about it multiple times: library, EdTech, IT, faculty development, faculty members, even students as partners. We could even invite students to tell what kind of tech tools are useful. If you want to learn certain skills, maybe they know certain games that they could use to learn certain skills and things like that. So yeah, it's all about partnership.
I think that also something that would really help is if, let's get in that ideal world where we wish we all were, where there's money for things in education. But if all of the IT departments had somebody on their staff who was formally trained in education technology, because you often find that you've got an IT group that's very good at technology, but they don't really know anything about pedagogy. And then you've got these older faculty who, are just wealths of knowledge on pedagogy, but they don't know the technology. Finding a formal, ed tech person that can bridge that together would make all the difference in the world. Or even if just different departments would, assign somebody to be a tech guru and give them enough time off from all the other things that faculty have to do to actually do it properly, it would work out.
Well, I think there's something else, though. I think that pre-COVID, it was okay to be that grumpy teacher, that grumpy professor that didn't really know how to use technology, because your students would always come up and they would help you. They'd help you get the screen working or whatever. And, you'd all laugh about it. And then the students would feel like, oh, cool, I'm helping out. I don't think teachers can have that role anymore. I think now, because we've been at this for over a year, if you are still the teacher who is saying, yeah, well, I don't know how to do this, your students are going to look at you differently. You want me as your student to learn, but you're not willing to learn. So I think that we need to understand as educators, our role has shifted. We can't, not engage anymore. If we want to engage our students, we want them to engage with us, we have to engage with technology, or we are going to become obsolete.
Right. So I have time for just one more question from Mentimeter. Okay. So I'm just going to jump right into that. So this question is from an administrator from a public school in the Philippines. And I'm not sure if it's a he or she, but the question says that I am a public school administrator. We always stress on the quality of the lessons that are being delivered to our students. What advice can the panelists give me in order to measure the efficacy of the lessons that are being delivered online to our students by our teachers? So it's a public school. They may not have access to, AI and all of that kind of stuff. So I think that's a great question, actually.
I think I'll jump in. So one of the things that we do at SUTD, and I have been trying to do this at different other universities in Singapore, is a concept called scholarship of teaching and learning. So it doesn't, one sort of faculty development is we sign on to courses or workshops. The other is to be in a community of partnership, collaboration to try out something. The third is scholarship of teaching and learning, where, we don't just start teaching something, but if you want to use certain technology or certain kind of different pedagogy, we actually learn about it in a scholarly way, find out what other people have done about what kind of subject have they taught, what was their findings like, and things like that, how to implement. And then we test it out, we implement it in our own school, and whatever we are doing, we sort of like document it, and we try to improve our own teaching and learning. So this can be for public sharing, but it can also be for the community sharing within your school. Maybe there's a department meeting that you can share your practice in, or it can be a Akadasia talk or something like that. Okay, so basically the idea is that each one of us are involved in continual improvement of our own practices. We take a scholarly approach, we take an evidence-based approach, and we take a reflective approach to continue to learn for ourselves as a teacher. Yeah.
This is a common theme. I mean, this is something actually I said in our last chat like this. Don't be afraid to fail. Sometimes you get a new technology and it just doesn't work. It doesn't do whatever you need it to do in your class. Well, try something else. Don't feel like you're a failure because that technology just didn't work for what you needed it to work for.
Yeah, can I add something here? Like, there's one thing that we have tried using and we have found it very effective, especially if it is for the lower classes in the sense, lower grades, I mean to say the school section that goes on till class 12 specifically, is co-teaching. Co-teaching is where two teachers are actually teaching together. That also breaks the monotony of the delivery, if at all it is going to be synchronous. And that also happens that what ideas I don't have, probably Nachamma will have. And so we might come up with this particular lesson plan, then we may show it, we'll be showing it to Eddie for his own inputs as to improve it, and then we go ahead. So it's like three people, and each one of us is thinking in a reflective manner and adding to it. So this co-teaching thing actually works very, very well and is very effective. The only thing is that, again, the admin, whose class is it and whose lecture should it be assigned to? But otherwise, practically speaking, because what happens is when we bring in, all three of us are going to bring in our own respective viewpoints, the students also get that much of that much plurality in their own thinking. So when we give them the projects, or maybe let's say just we open up a discussion, the way in which the discussions flow and the projects come up will be much different as compared to what if I would have given it up.
Actually, just to kind of wrap this up, I would like to add on that. Wait for FREEJOO version 2. It's coming second week of September. We're due for launch on 9th of September, and it's free for learners. And for teachers, it is as expensive as 4 cups of Starbucks coffee. But all of these nice things that Nachamma and Eddie and Poiting and Ajita have been talking about in terms of co-teaching, in terms of learning, in terms of building this community of practice, you should be able to do all of that, and you will be also able to track the efficacy of the lessons that you design right from the platform. So it's coming very soon. And with that, I think I'm going to pass my time back on to Kirsten to wrap it up. Kirsten?
Thank you so much. And again, I apologize for my internet deciding to go out in the middle of this. This has been a really exciting panel. It's funny because the more we do these, we just get into the conversations, and then it's like, oops, we were supposed to open it up to the audience. So I apologize. I just get engrossed in the conversation as well and don't necessarily pay attention to time as well as I should. It's all your fault because you guys are so interesting to talk with. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to ask you each for your final thoughts, and then I will wrap things up. But please, final thoughts for anyone.
I think you all have to sign up to FREEJOO and, join the community of practitioners. Yeah.
Yeah, more the merrier. So
we have to, not just, you.
I'll wrap up by saying if you're trying to figure out a way to put technology in your class, I mean, it's the old thing, especially in the South in the United States. If you can't swim, your parents just throw you in the pool and see how you do. You just have to jump in and try it. And with all of the faculty that I've worked with here, and I think you all would say the same thing at your universities, when they finally take the plunge and try it, they're like, oh, this is not as awful as I thought it was going to be.
I think a lot of Asian parents will never throw their kids into pools without any protection, but that's a whole different story.
I think that's a U.S. thing, Eddie.
Oh, well, I tried.
Yeah. So I think Ajita, anything?
So I think on my end, I really like whether or not like pedagogy come first or technology come first. I think the most ultimate things that we should ask ourselves would just be like, what our students are learning at the end of the day, and that would actually be like your North Star that will actually guide you. That would actually be my endings. Thanks.
Yeah, exactly what she said just now. I was just saying that in this is first of all not a fight of technology or pedagogy, and it should all boil down to only one thing: has the student learned? If it boils down to that one thing, I think you have just made it.
If I may just add on more
Please.
seriously, I think this community thing is very important. Don't try at this on your own. On your own, trying to do this, learning all the different technologies. Being part of the community will be helpful. To have the right support, to know who is trying, how to use a certain technology. So I certainly am looking forward to resources. I have signed up and I want to see, what the community is like and things like that. Thank you for the opportunities. Yeah.
I have one setup question. I'm
Please.
so sorry. Yeah. So I think in last year, I think we did a survey with like 700 students in Malaysia on like actually what do they think about online learnings, and I think something that they actually point out would just be what are some of the things that they really appreciate, and the top 3 would actually come back from like actually we really appreciate like a consistent learning structure, which is like it's not about like all the learning too, but it's like a consistency in terms of like learning structure, and then in terms of like how the teacher are actually working with another teacher, because there will be different teachers are teaching me at the same time, right? So I think these are actually sort of like the thought that actually students are actually be thinking around. So I think when just now we are thinking about like actually it should be the students as our center of any decision that we are making, and this is actually sort of like the student voice and actually be thinking about like we don't really want you to actually like play around with like all the different tools, but it's like, are you actually giving me the structures that actually allow the learning to actually happen? So I think that would just be some point that I want to actually bring it out.
Thank you all so very much. I'm going to try to summarize some of the main points that I think that we hit on that are very important. And I think Eddie, again, hit on this crucial point. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to try something new. What this may do, some of you have been teaching for a very, very long time. Technology might be the spark you need to reignite that passion. You got into education because of a love of learning and a love of teaching. And when you embrace the learning, especially if you struggle with it, now you're going to remember what it's like to be a student who is struggling with things too. So embracing the technology, making the jump, not being afraid to fail is a great thing. And technology is a tool, much like any other tool you use in your classroom, whether it's books or anything else. It's a tool, and how you integrate that, knowing that some of your students are going to have issues, but it's something that should be integrated, not something that should just be stuck on the side. Use it, and the way you're going to be able to use it the best is to take some time and play with it. What technologies do you use in your spare time? What do you have fun with? I never would have thought that my son playing an F1 game would make him a better driver in real life, and yet it does. So maybe you need to shift your view of technology as well. Be vulnerable and collaborate. None of us are in this alone, even though I think that most of us have never felt as isolated as we have through this whole COVID thing. what it's done is it's opened up worlds for us. So use it, ask for help, ask questions. You're not the only person who is like, ooh, how can I do this? Collaborate, find great things, breathe. As you get ready for the new year, breathe. You may be able to, be face to face with your students, but technology has a place in those face to face classes as well.
Absolutely.
And I think that I've hit everything and even added some stuff that maybe wasn't there. I don't know. It's 4:20 in the morning. Give me a break.
Well, thanks, Kirsten. Thanks, everybody. And I'll just kind of like to add on one other thing is to teach with purpose. I think as teachers, that's something that we should never forget. We need to teach with purpose, regardless of whether we have access to technology or not. But if you are teaching with purpose, you will find ways. You will find ways to deliver the objectives of your lesson. But anyway, thank you all the panelists today and to Kirsten. Thank you so much for all of your time and your great insights that you've shared here today. It was a real fun afternoon for me. I mean, I love kind of getting into these kind of, conversations. I just wish we were sitting face to face around a real fireside with marshmallows and hot cocoa. That would be perfect. And perhaps at, somewhere in Michigan, near Kirsten's place, near the lakes. So, yeah. But who knows? Maybe in the next couple of years, once the travel bans have been lifted, we should all be able to meet face to face eventually.
We'll all go down to
we gotta
Eddie's
meet
for
up.
Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
Come on.
And Nachima, we got to catch up for coffee. We are in the same country. We should definitely catch up for coffee. Yeah.
Definitely,
But anyway,
yes.
Thank you, everybody. And I would also like to just inform our audience for the e-certificates. I think the links have already been posted in the various chats. So please go ahead and click on those links and complete the exit survey, and you will automatically receive your e-certificates. Please be reminded to type in the correct email address. If not, you will not get your certificate and it will bounce. And if you do contact us about it, I'm sorry, but we are overwhelmed. We have more than 10,000 people, emailing us sometimes. So we will not be able to address each and every query, but please make sure that you have actually inputted the correct email address. And also, after the event, you will be able to find the link in the details of the actual event page on YouTube, on Facebook, and on LinkedIn. So you can use any of these platforms to go and search for the exit survey link at a later stage as well. And also, please do join us for the next virtual fireside chat, which is on the 8th of September. And we have another exciting topic, which is teachers over technology, the importance of professional development for educators. And that's going to be a very special one for us because I will be demonstrating FREEJOO version 2 live to the public for the very first time. So do not miss it. And if you haven't signed up for your free lifetime membership, please do that. Please go to akadasia.com and use the referral code, which is on your screen. Get a free account today. We are going live on the 9th of September, and we will showcase the platform to everybody on the 8th after the fireside chat. But thank you once again, everybody, for your time. And I wish you all the best. And please stay safe in these turbulent times. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, and bye-bye.
Thank you.
The global community of educators. Are you an educator who finds it difficult to engage the Gen Z learner? Are you finding it a challenge to make full use of technology for teaching and learning? Are you of the belief that good instructional design means that we need to upload text and presentation materials, videos, and quizzes onto a learning management system? Or are you still teaching all your classes using video conferencing systems? If so, then FREEJOO is the place you should be at. FREEJOO is is a community of educators by educators. Here, you can network with educators from all around the world, collaborate on projects, exchange ideas, access the best competency-based professional development courses which help you enhance your pedagogical and technical skills as a 21st century educator. Learn to use digital tools which enable you to design your lessons easily and quickly, and so much more. Join more than 100,000 educators from more than 35 countries and get access to a wide variety of competency-based professional development courses which you can complete at your own time and at your own pace. What's more, the courses are available in several different languages and come with CPD units and certificates. No matter if you teach children at a preschool or an elementary level, or at a high school or tertiary education level. Even if you are a corporate trainer training adults, we have professional development courses for you. So what are you waiting for? Sign up for early access to FREEJOO version 2 today at akadasia.com and get in queue to receive a free lifetime membership for FREEJOO. What's more, if you sign up today, you will even receive access to 10 professional development programs for free. Sign up today. Visit www.akadasia.com and join FREEJOO, the global community of educators.